Hey, everybody. Great to see everybody out there in Son of Sam land. Hey, welcome. Welcome. So great to see you. So thank you for joining me on this special little pop-up today that we have going on what date? November 12th, 2022. So this is a fun little show that I put together for you guys, and it's sort of one of the little outstanding shows. Debated whether to do this or not. Why did I debate this? Well, quite frankly, there's just no way in hell on earth or on earth or in heaven or on earth that we could have ever topped what we did with the Brooklyn series. Sorry, just can't be done. Brooklyn all the way. And of course, thank you, everybody out there. And of course, the great John Catalano is joining us, who was my co-host, co-producer, partner on that very legendary series that has now gone down in Son of Sam history as pretty much the main capstone in my video series. After that series ended, I just got to be honest. I had no interest in coming back to doing this. I was burnt. That show, those 4 shows took so much out of me, personally, emotionally, even physically, because a lot of brain power went into that I just couldn't even look at this topic for a while. But as I always do, every now and then, I go back into the Queen's DA files and I look into these obscure recesses, the dark recesses of these files, and I found something interesting for you guys. So I've been sitting on this for a while, actually. I've been talking to people about whether I should go with this. Some people said yes, some people said no. Thought about it, decided to put it on the back burner. And this morning, and I woke up and I just said, you know what? I owe this one to Wheat. This one is dedicated to Wheat Carr because, well, we have some still exoneration to do. We've spent a lot of time on John Carr and showing how Berkowitz found him in the phone book and how he didn't know John Carr and how this whole cult theory is complete BS. I mean, anybody still peddling this crap is just grifting at this point. I mean, give me a break. The fact that people are still out there talking about cults and Son of Sam is actually insulting to the Carr family. And so as long as people are out there shitting on the case, well, I'm going to be here cleaning up these messes in aisle 2. So of course, welcome to Breakage in aisle 2, another episode of this series where we just continue to debunk Maury. And why are we doing it? People are saying to me, Manny, why you rely so much on Maury Terry? If it wasn't for him, you wouldn't have a video series. Yeah, you're right. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have a video series. Because of course we started out the video series as acolytes, as huge fans of the book. And as time went on, we realized that we were manipulated, lied to, bullied, and abused by this hack, this piece of crap that we call Maury Terry. Puh. Spit his name out of my mouth. Sick of this crap already. So anyway, we got another one for you. So welcome to all the stalwarts out there in the audience. Great to see you. Bake Light, my man John Catalano here, the Queen Ruby, Lydia, Simone, and of course anybody who's going to be watching this after we air. And so today we're going to be talking about Michael Carr. Now, those of you may remember back in on May 23rd, 2021. I did a video on the Carr family. And in this video, which we see excerpts here of, I libeled this family. I slandered this family. I was making all sorts of logical leaps I shouldn't have. And I really did a disservice. Can you imagine being Wheat Carr ever since the publication of The Ultimate Evil? This woman helped capture David Berkowitz. This woman was instrumental, along with her father, Sam, in capturing the Son of Sam. And then what happens? A discredited hack comes along named Maury Terry with absolutely zero ethics, who thought nothing of lying to people, right? Lying to all of us. And he proceeded to basically call John and Michael accomplices with David Berkowitz and the Son of Sam. And he did it based on erroneous information and, of course, lying, manipulating, selective editing, all sorts of stuff with which we've caught him at. But here I was slandering the guy myself.
By all accounts, he was actually gay as well, and frequented the gay discos.
Calling him
and
gay.
was well known in the art scene and the music scene in Manhattan.
I mean, give me a break with all this stuff, right? So here I am slandering Michael Carr, and in fact, this video, which is on my archives, and Ruby, the great Ruby, just put up a link to my archives. You can see all how I slandered Michael, called him the author of the Breslin Letter, and I did it all based on, well, erroneous information out of the book, and also the fact that we didn't really know any better back then. So we are here to correct the record on this one. So let me just put this away. Anybody who wants to see this, this is the Carr family. I brought in this thing called Catholics for Latin America, headed by a respectable, now we know to be a respectable guy named Dr. Robert Honorado, who had nothing whatsoever to do with this. He just happened to be related to the Carr clan through marriage. But see, that's how we work as Terry heads. Terry heads, their methodology is if someone has the same last name as someone, they're involved. Right? Oh my God. I mean, they do it to me, right? Oh my God. There's a guy in Michigan with the last name Grossman who was once caught for child molestation. Because he has the last name, he's related to Manny, and therefore, you know, and then all these morons go on flights of fancy. When in reality, my family comes from a long line of Pittsburgh Jews, all who fought in World War II heroes. Every one of these guys was a hardworking family man. And of course, my grandfather is there all the way on the right, holding the little baby with the, looks like he's blowing bubbles. That's my Uncle Ronnie, who's now 84 years old. And that's my paternal grandfather right there, one of 10 boys and 1 girls, all of whom were cited by Congress as war heroes. So, you know, these games of telephone, they got to stop. It's got to all end. These people shitting on the case with their cult crap, they have to be thoroughly relegated to the dustbins of history. And of course, that's what we're doing. That's what we are all doing today. So, all right. Well, listen, this one goes out to you, Wheat. I know you didn't ask for it. I know that we are not best friends. In fact, just like everyone out there who thinks they're slick, I first emailed Wheat last year thinking I would trick her into confessing. Yes, trick Wheat Carr. Yes, I knew she was involved. And why did I know she was involved? Because Maury Terry told me, and I read it in the book. And then all these morons proceeded to tell me, oh yeah, Wheat was the shooter in this and Wheat that. So I remember emailing Wheat, and she was very nice. She wrote back to me and started an email correspondence that started when we were actually kind of working at cross purposes. I was trying to catch her. I was trying to make her slip into a confession. And in reality, I found a very nice, erudite woman who has no problem telling you what she thinks, has no problem filling in the facts, and actually is extremely communicative. As long as you're, well, on the level, right? And of course, we came back to Wheat Carr and we apologized profusely once we realized that we were wrong. And she has since, to her credit, been extremely gracious about the whole thing. And to this day, I continue to get emails from Wheat Carr occasionally that are very nice. And so I wanted to do this one as a dedication to Wheat. I'm calling you a friend. I don't care what you think of me, but I'm calling you a friend. So I'm doing this for my friend Wheat, okay, who has been put through the ringer by Maury Terry and his stupid, grifting fans ever since, and even to this day. Okay, I'm angry. I'm angry about this. And of course, it's our video series that vindicated Wheat Carr. And since we are still, even though I took a little retirement break, and I'm still, consider me still retired with the, but I'll occasionally come out and do these shows. Consider this one a vindication of another vindication of the Wheat Carr and the Carr family. So I just want to give a good shout out to my boy Crime Spot, Cold Case Crime Spot. He's got some exciting things in the works. I'm not going to tell you guys. He's sworn me to secrecy, but you should all check out New York City Crime Spot's channel because he is Well, another man of integrity, a person who just wants to put out great stories of New York City crime, and everyone he deserves your views for sure. All right, so why don't we just get started? So I haven't even told you what today's really about, in the sense of I wanted this to be a surprise. I didn't even want my thumbnail to be seen, to show you exactly what was going on in the thumbnail, because I didn't want to be scooped on this one. But let's just explain my thumbnail a little bit. Well, here we have Maury Terry dreaming up these fantasies of Michael Carr writing the Breslin Letter, while David Berkowitz laughs his ass off in the background. Why? Because he knows the truth. He knows the truth about the block letter writing in the Breslin Letter that none of us knew until today. All right, so why don't we get into it? So Mike Carr and the Breslin Letter. Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about how Maury Terry totally slandered this guy, painted him with such a. In fact, reading this with a 2022 mentality, we're going to see also that Maury Terry filled the ultimate evil with homophobia, right? Actually, Maury Terry did that a couple times in the book. He started going off against gays so bad that it makes me wonder about Maury Terry. All right, whether he in fact was a secret homosexual, because the hatred for gays and that this guy has in the book is beyond pathological. So let's talk about this. Of course, here's Michael Carr, the young Michael Carr. And by all accounts, Michael Carr was a very nice kid. He was a sweet boy. Wheat Carr just recently told me about how him and her would garden in the next door in the house next door, 312 Warburton, and how they were growing food. Now, don't paraphrase me there. I don't remember her exact email, but they would grow flowers and they would pick flowers. So Maury Terry would have us believe that this poor innocent kid grew up into a satanic devil worshiping murderer. And of course, here is Michael Carr over here at his wedding. Okay, so now I know that if you're a homosexual, it is possible for you to get married. All right, I know people even to this day down south who have 4 children, 5 children, married for 30 years, but I know in my heart that they're secretly gay. And I don't hate them for it, but you just know realities. So being married doesn't necessarily mean you're not gay. But here we, of course, have Michael Carr at his wedding. And of course, here is Michael Carr and his sister Wheat dancing at this wedding. And this is a great picture because, well, we see 2 people that Maury Terry accused of involvement in Son of Sam, and they don't look to me like satanic murderers. And of course, check out this guy in the back. Boy, talk about 1970s, huh? So Michael Carr was a sensitive kid. He was an artistic kid. He went to RIT upstate, and I spoke to people who knew him up there. He was a nice guy. He was a partier. He was always trying to help people. Nobody ever heard of any of this satanic activity with Michael Carr before Maury Terry, the hack, came along. So, of course, let's take a look at how Maury Terry treated Michael Carr, shall we? Let's do it. So let's look a little bit at some passages in the book, because, again, this is instructive for us. So first of all, Maury Terry never came out directly and said Michael Carr authored the letter. He did it the way he loves to do it. He alluded to it. He made us, he connected things that were disparate and then made us think by these allusions, ALLUSIONS, not illusions, allusions, that he made us think through these allusions that Michael Carr was the author of this letter. So let's the Breslin Letter. So let's take a look at some of these passages. So here he is talking about the letter, right? And he ended this right up here with 44. So that's the end of the Breslin Letter. Beneath that was the Son of Sam graphic symbol. It was one hell of a return address and was withheld from the public. Besides the accomplished printing style, the Breslin Letter incorporated techniques normally used by someone familiar with graphics, such as centering and hanging indentations. Once the letter was published, police phones rang off the hook. People were turning in journalists, artists, draftsmen, cartoonists, men named John, boys nicknamed Duke. Okay. Now remember all this stuff because this comes back later in the book. Maury Terry was a masterful manipulator of words. I mean, really a brilliant, brilliant manipulator of words. And the police themselves arranged for a screening of a Scottish film, The Wicker Man, which revolved around druid sacrifices in flaming wicker baskets. Okay, so now this talks about Michael Carr. This is later in the book. I took disparate parts of the book and put them together to weave this narrative here. I'm not trying to lie about that. I'm not trying to selectively edit and manipulate. Those of you who are heads of this book, who know this book, know that I'm being honest here. I'm just showing you the various passages that Maury Terry wrote about Michael Carr, the innocent Michael Carr. Michael Carr was educated in Yonkers schools and graduated from the Rochester Institute of Technology and Photography in upstate New York in 1973. Reportedly married for a brief period. Well, not reportedly. We just showed his marriage pictures. He earned his living as a photography and graphics illustrator, in addition to duties with the family answering service. All right, so right there, he didn't have to say it, right? But if we look at the previous passage, right? Besides the accompanied printing style, the Breslin Letter incorporated techniques normally used by someone familiar with graphics. And then here he says that Michael was a graphics illustrator. So, of course, our stupid minds, before we realized that we were colossally lied to, manipulated, bullied, and abused, everybody admit to yourself out there that you know this to be true. Okay. And now I'm talking to the heads. I'm talking to the people who know the ultimate evil, who know this case. I'm no longer, this is PhD level Son of Sam stuff. This isn't for the troglodytes and the morons out there, right? Talking about sinister forces and Peter Lavenda and all that stupid crap. First of all, Lavenda wasn't even in the Bronx, most likely. I don't think he was. Nobody knew him there. And even if he was like way younger. Okay. So Lavenda's, and in his book, Sinister Forces, is a joke. Okay. That's a whole circle jerk. All his material he got from Maury Terry and then regurgitated it back to us, making major errors. He calls Detective Hank Chinati Harry. I mean, it's pathetic. But anyway, in our formerly unsophisticated minds, I took this graphics illustrator thing right here and then put it together, because Maury wanted me to do that, with this passage over here. And that immediately made me think that Michael Carr wrote the Breslin Letter. And you did too. Okay. You did too. You know that you did. We can all admit it. It's okay. Now check out the homophobia here. Michael liked to bounce around the glittery Manhattan disco circuit. He counted among his friends a number of professional photographers, and sources close to Berkowitz state that Michael also socialized with the kinky homosexual set uptown near Columbia University and elsewhere downtown. Both at work and play, Michael occasionally wore high boots and an earring, according to an attorney whose name is known to Queens investigators. So, of course, there's unsourced, as John Catalano brilliantly says, unsourced, baseless allegations. Of course, dead names is an absolute complete joke. But here we go, right? Here, Maury does his thing. Homosexual, photographers, Columbia University, bringing Voskerichian into this, right? He wore high boots and an earring. All right. So we have a lot of innuendo here where Maury relied on us, the reader, to put these things together in the way that he wanted us to. And the way that he wanted us to vis-a-vis our today's show, he wanted us to think that Michael wrote the Breslin Letter. I mean, plain and simple. Let's read Lydia's thing. Maury is either a total homophobe or closeted and has a deep inner rage in himself. I got these vibes when I read the book originally, because remember, I was a skeptical reader in a sense, because I kind of realized that he was full of crap about Rush, about his geography lessons. He said that the one train ended at the Yonkers border when there's 20 more blocks to get to Yonkers, which I can prove to you in 1 second showing you Google Earth, but I won't. So this is right. Nikosmas, perfect here. See, you guys are the smartest Son of Sam audience out there. It's just bar none. Visualization steering. I mean, that's beautiful, beautiful stuff. Thank you, Nikosmas. All right, so here we go. More innuendo, right? The ballistics report from the Candlelight Inn. So this is talking about the Candlelight Inn. Now, Candlelight is controversial because in my previous series, I was working with a guy who said that he went up to Candlelight and had these conversations. I don't know that to be true. I wasn't there. This guy has since proven to be a complete untrustworthy person. And so we can put no stock in what that person said, but I still don't believe that this Candlelight incident was true. But look at what he does here, right? So because the Candlelight report ballistics, where Maury said that Michael Carr shot into the Candlelight Inn, it was a 38 special or a 357 Magnum. So there and then in the following passage, he goes, the following handguns were registered to other members of the Carr household, right? Smith and Wesson, 2 Colt 38s. So again, more visualization. He puts together an incident, the Candlelight Inn, which had nothing to do with Son of Sam, David Berkowitz, the Carrs. And then he uses that ballistics report to then show you, and then he shows you what the Carrs owned. And then in our mind, we thought, they did it. They're guilty. They're guilty. See, but then he goes even further, right? Besides his Candlelight capers, Michael Carr had the insidious inclination of obtaining credit cards under fraudulent names. Now, that might be true, okay? Doesn't mean you're a murderer. Some scented with illusions of royalty. For instance, this upstanding Scientology counselor, see there, Moore even puts that in too, right? As if Scientology, like, look, I'm not a Scientologist. I couldn't care less about these stupid pop or faux religions. To me, Scientology is the dumbest shit on earth. I don't understand why anybody would follow it, but whatever, to each their own, right? But here he goes, putting Scientology into this because he wanted to make it seem like Michael Carr and Scientology were involved with the process and all this stuff. I mean, reading this back now, it's unbelievable we fell for this stuff. This upstanding Scientology counselor held charge cards from both Gimbel's department stores and European health spas in the name of Baron De Charnowski at JCPenney. He also registered as MV De Charnowski at Bloomingdale's, and he purchased his fragrances under the moniker M. De Charnowski. Michael fancied himself an exiled Russian nobleman, even to the point of creating his own coat of arms. Moet, I always got to make you happy, Moet. Moet, I've been waiting to do that for a while. When I saw his barren credit listings and also noted the word Char was hidden 2 of the last names, I was reasonably certain that another of the Breslin letters, aliases were deciphered. The Duke of Death. Now, first of all, we know that Duke was the name of the German Shepherd at 22 Wicker Street. Okay. I suspected the remaining alias, the Wicked King Wicker, belonged to a certain other party. Yeah, King, the very poorly behaved German Shepherd that replaced Rocket, who at 18 Wicker Street, after David Berkowitz shot and killed Rocket, sorry, I'm just getting a little distracted at the chat. The Nettos bought another German Shepherd named King. Okay. We already knew who John Wheaties was. Yeah. Berkowitz made him up. I mean, John Wheat Carr, he found him in the phone book. And anyway, and then of course here, regarding Michael Carr's pronounced Russian interests and the information he associated with the people at Columbia University, it is interesting to note that Son of Sam victim Virginia Voskerichian was herself a Russian language student at Columbia. Yes, so what? There was probably 40 of them, maybe even 100 of them at Columbia University. It's a huge university. I mean, big freaking whoop. But you see how Maury does this. He doesn't actually prove anything in these passages. He does it all by innuendo. Okay. And then we stupid, dumb Terry heads. Now, we're not Terry heads anymore, right? But back then, we were ignorant. We actually thought that this was actually real proof that there was something to go by in here. Right. And Lydia's correct. Everything is connected to everything in Maury Terry's fantasy world. Precisely. Okay. Just real quick, I want to invite people to call in. Call in at any time. I don't care. Just try to keep it short, okay? And we'll get to you. All right, so let's carry on because I found some interesting things. The NYPD auxiliary files. Now, of course, what are we talking about here? We are talking now specifically about the issue of the authorship of the Breslin letter. Now, I have already proven to you that Berkowitz wrote it. I've shown you how he used passage terminology in that letter we have found in his apartment letters, which were never publicized, and which he wrote months and months before the Breslin letter was printed in the newspaper. So he couldn't have seen the Breslin letter and then wrote these letters in his apartment and all that. Yeah, I know the Terry heads are going to say, well, he wrote them after and then he backdated them. Okay, believe what you want, guys. Are these backdated letters? Are they in the room with us now? Anyway, no, we've already proven that Berkowitz wrote these letters, both the Breslin and the Borelli letter. Now it's painfully obvious. The handwriting is obviously his. But still, there was the mystery remained. Well, how did he know this style of writing, this block letter writing? This block letter writing is only used by editors and Marvel comic strip writers and people who know graphics and and Michael Carr was a graphics illustrator. Guilty, right? Well, I found some things in the New York Police Department auxiliary files that are very, very interesting and, well, deserve a second look. Now, remember, it is hard to top Brooklyn. Like it's impossible for me to top Brooklyn, and that was one of the things why I didn't want to come back after the Brooklyn series. Because there was no way to top the information there, the absolutely devastating takedown. And I didn't want to be seen as like doing things that were speculative or too and or basically low impact, I should say, right? And I was a little afraid that this topic today would be a little bit low impact. But regardless, I want to subsume my ego for a second, and I want to make us understand that even though this may be not as sexy as the Brooklyn series or as the other series we did, I actually think this is an extremely important issue that I raise, and I am going to raise the issue of where Berkowitz learned how to write in this way. Well, we remember that Berkowitz was a member of the New York Police Department auxiliary units. Okay. These are like buffs. These are like teenage kids who want to become cops. Some of them are very psychologically damaged and they want to, they're like Buffy. They end up committing crimes and then going and wanting to solve them, or they're arsonists. Right. And Berkowitz was kind of like that. He was an arsonist. He was all, but, and then he was into like, putting out the fires that he started and all that kind of stuff. But the fact is he was in NYPD auxiliary, and there are certain realities of that which I have discovered. So first, let's get to while proving it. Well, here he is. It's a little hard to see, and all these files are publicly available in the Queens DA stuff. David Berkowitz, 17017 driver loop, service, auxiliary police rescue, and the 45th precinct. All things that we knew. This is very hard to see. I'm sorry, but this is just the way it showed up in the files. Okay. Now take a look at this. Civil Defense Section, Auxiliary Police Roll Call, 1971. Berkowitz was 18 years old. His name is here. He had to have seen this. Look at the way that these letters are written. Just look at it. Now, I'm not saying he wrote this, okay? In fact, he didn't write this. This is not in his handwriting. But look at the letters here, how they're all in block style, including his name, and how similar this is to the writing in the Breslin letter. I'm not done. We're not anywhere near done. So right now we're establishing something. We're establishing that Berkowitz in 1971, when he was 18 years old, 5 years before the Breslin letter came out, was already familiar with the block printing style. Okay, block printing style of writing. and he learned it in the auxiliary. Oh, look, here's another one. Okay, same handwriting, and I don't know who did this. Maybe it's Sergeant Camardella. Okay, and here we have all the familiar names, David Berkowitz, right? And look at look how similar. Look at the T's here. Well, now we're going to compare as we go to the Breslin letter. So don't worry about that. Look at this down here. The way Westchester is written. Okay, all in capital letters, all in block letters, all hanging off to the side, all in the same exact style as the Breslin letter. Berkowitz was familiar with this handwriting style. Oop, looky here, another one. Okay, and again, 1971. There's a very familiar name, and here's another familiar name, Ed Snedeker, who was his best friend, who we've spoken about. Okay. Now, G Movie Fan writes actually brings up a very appropriate comment here that he could have easily written these letters too, but I didn't, right? And I think what he's trying to say is that anybody could have written in that block style, and that is true. But here we have an actual direct link connection to this block style of writing and David Berkowitz's name in an official documents. And look, he signed this. That's his handwriting. He had to have seen this over here. He had to have seen all of this over here, all of these letters. So Moet, I think you are absolutely correct. He was inspired by that type of handwriting. We just figured out how Berkowitz learned how to write in that block lettering. This was a mystery of the ultimate evil. Why would Berkowitz have written in that lettering? How could he have known that lettering? That lettering was only familiar to a person with graphics abilities, with design studios, Michael Carr. No, Berkowitz was learning how to write like this back in 1971. We're not finished. So here's the same handwriting again, and you guys can all see this for yourself. Okay, I didn't manipulate this stuff. I didn't edit it. I didn't block anything out, and so on and so forth. Now we're not finished. Now they didn't always write in this style there. Okay, here's their printing. I'm sorry, their cursive. And I don't think that any of these guys wrote this because that's not Berkowitz's handwriting. Now, here's John Comparetto, interestingly enough. Okay, John Comparetto, who's been on our airwaves, who has said that he served in the auxiliaries with David Berkowitz. So not that we needed proof, but here's absolute proof. And then, of course, there's their other friend, Ed Snedeker. Okay, so all of these things that Comparetto was telling us coming together in these things. Now, I know what you're saying. Well, someone else wrote that. Berkowitz never wrote these reports. He would have no handwriting to write these reports, right? And so on and so. He never would have written any of these reports. So therefore, you're wrong, Manny. Okay, if you want to believe that, hey, go back to Sinister Forces. Let's see how far that gets you in this world. But you'd be wrong, because here's a report that he did write. Okay. Now we still see the same guy's name up there, Sergeant Camardella, but this is clearly David Berkowitz's handwriting. Clearly. And how do I know that? Because compare it to this over here. 5 years later, when he was wigging out on Pine Street, bring me the head of a woman to place on our altar. Spill the blood of an innocent one, so that we in the spirit shall go to thee and drink her blood. I, the master of the house of 18 Wicker Street, Yonkers, commands my slave David Berkowitz to kill. I am foul, vile, and wicked. Every murder in Westchester County is under the name of 18 Wicker Street. All the manure in the streets, all the vomitus in the alleyways, and all the urine under the stench steps does not equal my vile soul, says the Lord of 18 Wicker Street. So, of course, there's more proof. Manure, vomit, urine, same order as in the Breslin letter. This was written 6 months before the Breslin letter, December 22nd, 1976. But of course, the point that we're making here is that it's the same handwriting as this. It's the exact same handwriting. Berkowitz has very, very distinct handwriting. So Berkowitz actually did write these reports every now and then, these auxiliary police report roll calls, and he did make a sort of half-assed attempt in some ways, especially up here, to write in the oh, okay, Gary. Didn't know that. I thought Gary was a different name. Hey, Gary. So here we have Berkowitz trying in his own half-assed way. Now, he's not getting all capitals. He's writing in capitals and in lowercase. But here we have him trying to write in that blocky style. Okay? Because look at the difference here. And then it's like much more, much more down here. It's much more sloppy. Okay? So I've just shown you now that Berkowitz not only learned the writing from his commanders, but now we are slowly starting to see as time goes on. This is actually before, now that I'm looking at the date, this is 1970. Those ones before were 1971. This is 1970. I didn't notice that. Okay, right there, 1970. So by 1970, the 17-year-old David Berkowitz was already, as Donna Tripp correctly points out, he is practicing this style of writing. Okay. Now it starts to get a little bit more interesting. So I don't know who wrote this one. And again, this one isn't that big a deal over here. But now, check this out. So again, I don't know who wrote this. This looks like Berkowitz's handwriting, that he wrote Snedeker, Berkowitz, and Comparetto here. Okay. But look at those T's. Now we're going to start comparing these to the Breslin letter. Look at those T's. Boy, does that look like the Breslin letter. Oh, in fact, here's the Breslin letter. D. Berkowitz. Look at that T. Look at those T's on Comparetto. Look at the T's. Every T here is the exact same thing. Look at that T. Look at that T. Hello from the gutters. The T with the angle up. Now, it's not quite as angled up over here, but yet is still angled up. I think Berkowitz wrote Snedeker, Berkowitz, and Comparetto here, and that's his handwriting. Hey, we have somebody in the crowd. We have somebody who's just called in. Somebody who the audience has absolutely said, hey, man, where's he been? May I introduce to you the one. Moet, I think you're going to want to get ready for this one. The only Eric. What's up? How are you?
Well, I look more like one of the mystery men who from Untermeyer Park. I look like the
caveman
that came out of the woods. No, listen, I'm glad you got me. Yeah, listen, your analysis is brilliant. It's a lesson in how people should look at every detail available. Now, it's interesting, the different T's. I agree with you. I think Berkowitz very well could have written those last three names of his buddies there. The T's are exactly the same. Exactly the same. Now, the thing that I have to ask is, if you look at how he writes, though, and who wrote this, it appears, the slant, as I wrote, from top right to lower left in capitals, higher case letters or block capitals, is italic. But this here does not seem to be as well, all of it, as well produced italically as the former letters. The former letters are more like somebody creating a design.
Hold on. You're confusing me. What are you calling, what is, in your mind, what is the former letter? I don't understand.
The letters you showed before, people signing in here, the sheets, the sign sheets.
Okay, let me get to them. Let me get to them.
This is italic-like, but they were far more specifically very italic. Look
here,
at
you mean?
Yeah, look at how neat and properly arranged it is, because that type of printing, which is italic printing, from upper right down to lower left, it all follows a specific neat pattern of somebody who knew how to do that print.
Well, but
Well,
I don't think Berkowitz wrote these, though.
no, he didn't.
Right.
He didn't. And I'm saying that on that last sign-in sheet, where you believe, and I agree with you, that he wrote these with the T's, Comparetto Berkowitz, it's not the same person doing the same type of italic printing.
No, but it's clearly a young Berkowitz, in my opinion. Now, this is just my opinion, but this is clearly a young Berkowitz learning how to practice how to write that style.
Yeah, that's exactly what I believe.
And we can see obvious tells here. We can see the T's. Let's look at the E's. Now, the E's are not as slanted. So the E here, well, the E's here are not as slanted. That's not that slanted, right? Let's see if there's any non-slanted E's in this. No, most of the E's are slanted here, but we're still not done, Eric. Let's analyze the next set.
And sometimes he goes with the word like feed, where he slants opposite, where it's top left to lower right.
Right. So here's another one here. Okay, again, Comparetto, Berkowitz, Snedeker, and I think that Berkowitz wrote these three. It has that characteristic handwriting of his. He didn't write all of them.
Yeah, and,
Okay.
and the entries are rather slipshod and sloppy.
They're very sloppy here.
They're not like the person who did the others. And
Right.
it's not authenticated by anybody. That there's no authentication signature. Go back. Is there?
No, there isn't. No, authenticated, no signature here.
There's no signature. So is that really an official sheet, or was it something practiced on?
I think this is official, and I think that the fact that there's no signature, I'm not prepared to give an answer to that. I don't know. Maybe somebody who can call in who
Just an observation. I mean, every little thing down below there might be a signature, but it's very odd.
But here we go again. Comparetto, Berkowitz, Snedeker, all written by the same hand. Okay. And again, look at those T's. Okay. The T's are almost, well, a little bit more angled up here, but he was clearly going for that look here in the Breslin Letter. And it was much more, obviously, this was 5 or 6 years later. He was older. He was more, he was thinking about this more, but it's very characteristic. Now, here's more. This one kills me because there we go again. Now here we have Snedeker, Berkowitz, Comparetto. So whoever wrote this got it wrong. This is Comparetto, but we have the two T's, and this looks exactly like.
Yeah, he put the E in the wrong place. It should be before the T. Now, on the previous letter that you showed, there's something interesting. It's reverse italic. It's going from top left to lower right.
Can you explain to the audience, because I'm not kind of getting what you're saying there?
Okay. You see this writing here? This is italic writing. Here's the top right. Look at the R on Bauer. It's high up, and it goes from left down.
Hold on, R on Bauer. Where's Bauer?
The second name. I'm just looking at the second name.
Winter.
Okay. It looked like okay. See the R?
Yeah.
The top is slanted toward the right, and the slant comes down leftward. That's
right.
What makes it italic. It's a slant from right to left. Now, if you go to Berkowitz's letters, some of them are opposite. It's from top left to lower right.
Okay.
So, was that a defect of his printing when he wrote the letters, a different emotional state, which would cause him to attempt to print italically, but do it wrongly with regards to the slanting of the letters?
I mean, these are questions that are a little bit beyond my pay grade. I am not an expert, and I'm not in his head. I couldn't say.
I'm complimenting you because of what you've brought out, Manny.
I just think this is definitely worthy of study. I think this is, even though it's not as sexy as Brooklyn, and therefore I didn't want to come out with it. I couldn't keep this a secret because I kept on expecting other people to find this. I don't know why I expect other Son of Sam researchers to go as deep as I did.
They're not as meticulous. They're like a lot of them are like Maury Terry and the Queens County people. They're superficial investigators.
Exactly.
Like I talked about George Bird and Lifer. They just skim over everything. Look at the T's on the bottom. Now look, cleaned out truck.
Right. That looks just, in my opinion, it's just like the T's here. Now we also have to look at E's. So look at the E of Comparetto or Compartillo. Again, if Berkowitz wrote this, it shows that he would reverse letters. That was like a characteristic of his, just like Weeman and all that kind of stuff, right? And Eric, in our psychiatric reports that we looked at for so long, he did that all the time. He would get letters, he would reverse letters.
Oh yeah.
But this E in gutter right here looks just like the E, pretty much just like the E here. It's more straight, but yet slightly angled up. Okay. I'm just trying to see if there's any other E's here, because I think he wrote Snedeker Berkowitz.
The E of winter.
It's a little bit slightly down, but it does the E of Camardella. Again, I think Berkowitz might have written all of these now that I'm looking at all of these.
Because there's also a thing on the previous sign-in sheets that are very, very neat. Nothing sloppy, signed by, who is it, Campanella, a name similar to that.
Yeah, Camardella.
Notice also that all of the capital letters have perfect conformity of size. Here you have sometimes variations of size.
Right, but then again, remember, Eric, he was 17 years old here on the left, and he was 24 years old here, or 23. Yeah. So he was just older. He had more time, and he obviously was. He wrote to his. I believe I recently read in the psychiatric reports that he practiced these letters for quite a while. The Son of Sam letters. He wrote, yeah. So he was much more careful here, but still, there's certain tells that just look exactly the same. Let's see. Do we have any more?
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. I'm not trying to say because there is a different size and later on not. That it's not him. I'm just pointing out that the different size of the italic print done by Berkowitz, which could be true on the auxiliary sheets, was him as opposed to before someone else.
Right. And here we have again the same thing, another call-in sheet. Snedeker, Berkowitz, Compartillo. Okay, so there he goes, getting it wrong again. And I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say. You can't say for certain that Berkowitz wrote these, but it does look like his handwriting. And even if it wasn't him that wrote this, he saw this. And therefore, he was exposed. And that's ultimately my point here, Eric, is that he was exposed to this style of writing in the auxiliaries. And therefore, he could have gone back into his brain. And remember, the Son of Sam letters were heavily involved with law enforcement stuff, right? Please, JB.
I was thinking that. And also, he definitely really empirically was involved with this style of printing, the italic, because he's one of the 3 or 4 who signs in or signs out. Not everyone you notice has put their signature on the sheet.
Correct. Eric, you have I'm glad that you came on because you see things that I don't. But getting back to my point about the law,
things I don't. It's not one-sided. You see a lot. You've done this show.
Right, exactly. But getting back to the original point here of again law enforcement. Look, even the Breslin letter, JB, please inform the detectives working the case that I wish them the best of luck. Upon my capture, I promise to buy all the guys working on the case a new pair of shoes. Right? This is like law enforcement talk.
Yeah, Manny, look at the if. Look at the if. Last sentence. You see what I mean? The above it and case. They all go from left down to right. The opposite of how it should be if it was italic, right down to left. Right. Also, I think that depending on what he's writing about, printing, shall we say, depending on his emotional, psychological state, the printing takes different shapes sometimes.
Correct. His handwriting always takes different styles depending on his psychological state.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, this was our last one. You might as well stick with me, Eric. This is on another topic. We have always heard, again, Maury Terry brought in this whole notion of Patrick O'Shaughnessy being involved with Berkowitz, and he said that they knew each other in the auxiliaries and all the sort. Well, here's an auxiliary sheet that shows that he didn't know him. First of all, Berkowitz should be on here if he knew O'Shaughnessy, right? But here we have Comparetto's name, we have O'Shaughnessy's name, we have Howard Weiss, and Comparetto has told us straight up that Berkowitz was not part of the 52nd. Here's the 52nd, right? The 52nd auxiliary where O'Shaughnessy was, and that O'Shaughnessy was not in the 45th precinct. So this is bearing out to be true in these files. We don't see O'Shaughnessy's name anywhere in the 45th, anywhere. But all of a sudden, well, hold on one second. All of a sudden, we see O'Shaughnessy in the 52nd, and we don't see Berkowitz's name. So this is another piece of anecdotal evidence, right? Because it's not the end all be all, but this is another piece of evidence that Berkowitz did not know O'Shaughnessy, like what's his face said.
Auxiliary policeman. Now, I want to say, when you say 52nd and 40
precinct,
okay. Yeah, it's interesting, though. What this does corroborate is when we did the show with Gary Hanley.
Yeah.
Yeah, that there was a friendship between Howard Weiss and Patrick Shaughnessy. No.
Oh, that was never in doubt. I mean, even O'Shaughnessy said that he gave him. He was always. They were always together. I mean, he sold him guns. They sold cars together. You know, I think bought a car off each other. I'm not quite sure.
You know what's missing for this show, really, and it's a shame the man has disappeared. John Comparetto.
I would love John Comparetto to come back. I would love him to explain this. He's the one who signed all these, or whose name is on these sheets. I would love for him to come and really explain, like, what are we seeing here exactly? And but you know, unfortunately, John, you know, we haven't heard from him in a while. So Jen is asking a question here. Why is some of it redacted? It's been so many years. Because this has date of birth. Hold on, let me show this again. Because Jen, this has date of birth and addresses. Now, the old address wouldn't matter, but you know, you don't want to identify these guys. Don't want to be identified. They're not involved, right? So we don't want to. I didn't redact these. This is redacted from the actual files. But anyway, so I think that's basically it. If anyone else wants to call in and put in their 2 cents, please do. I just put the link in the chat. Eric, any thoughts? What's going on? How have you been, man?
I've been well. I've been very, very, shall I say, I've been full of anxiety with everything that I have to face, like you, wanting a job, wanting health, wanting to save my property. It's a fight today because they've got our backs to the wall with everything that they pulled off.
I mean, I don't want to get too heavily into this because I don't want to get struck, but let's just put it this way, Eric. We're officially on our own as freedom lovers in America. We are on our own.
And the information, I'll call her by her Greek name, Anastasia, gave me about Ron DeSantis, forget about him. It's amazing. Forget about him. He's being used to destroy everything. He's being used.
I'm done with mainstream politics. My main concern now is survival of me and my loved ones and getting out.
I'm better than you or anybody. My wife was saying, you can't, you'll be a traitor. Of course, she comes from an anti-communist background.
I'm just concerned with personal survival now.
Yeah, that's it. Personal survival and those whom I truly love.
Exactly.
That's it.
All right, Eric. Well, I think that's basically it. I said what I needed to say. Huh?
Everybody, please pray for Tracy Dupay. It just came to my mind. She suffered with Hurricane Ian, and now successively there's been Hurricane Nicole.
Yeah. I haven't. Oh, wait. Here we got Book Club. So Book Club can add his 2 cents. Eric, I'm going to let you go. Okay.
Yeah. God bless you all.
Okay.
Sorry for my appearance.
You look great. In fact, you're presaging Santa Claus. No offense, but you're looking like Santa.
Oh, if I won a lottery, I'd be the kindest man. I've always was like that, and I will be again. God bless you all.
Thanks, Eric. Let's get Book Club in here because Book Club can actually add also some really good insight into this, or potentially some good insight. Book Club, how are you, sir? Can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
We can hear you now.
All right. Just looking at those.
Do you want me to get them back up?
Yeah, you could bring them up.
Let me get them. Let me just get them real quick. Hold on. Carr, boom, D. Hold on 1 second, sir. Share screen. D. Ba. And there we go. All right. So talk to me.
All right. Well, just looking at some of these sheets again with the dates and everything like that, and some. Let me just try to get my thoughts straight. So the ones where you think Berkowitz just wrote like a few.
Let's get to that one.
Right.
This one is the most obvious to me because the Snedeker Berkowitz Comparetto looks so different from everything. Well, maybe TJ Winter looks the same too.
Well, that being that as it may, what could have happened in that situation where that roll call could have been, filled out before the shift, and as guys came in, they would sort of sign in. Mm-hmm. And Dave might have took it upon himself to sign his two friends in that he came with, Right. If he probably had the best handwriting because, I think it's something that it's not taught to write like that. But, because I know plenty of guys that have sloppy handwriting. But with that, he might have just came in and wrote a few. The one where you think he wrote the whole sheet out, that one looks like, too, his rank at the time is TRN, which he's probably a trainee at that point.
Right.
Okay. And it looks like, Dave might have been brown-nosing the sergeant, and it looks like that's only with his three friends. So whatever it was going to do, can you whatever they were going to do that day, Dave took it upon himself, or he was, directed by his supervisor to write out the sheet, more or less as a training exercise.
Right. So he writes all this down here.
They help direct traffic at a busy intersection.
During a fire which occurred at Willis Avenue.
Which, at that time, auxiliary during that time had a lot more, I guess they participated a lot more back then because I guess there wasn't as many police officers. So they supplemented, being the fact that they had those emergency truck, like they were part of that rescue. Like
right.
The 4-5 and the 5-2 had rescue. So the 4-5 probably took care of one area of the Bronx, and the 5-2 probably took care of the other area of the Bronx.
Right.
So because they're sort of, spread
on opposite. They're on opposite sides of the Bronx.
So, they did a lot more than they do now. And that being the fact that I believe it was in the mid 90s, 2 auxiliary officers actually lost their lives trying to take police action.
Mm-hmm.
One, I really forget. I'd have to look it back up, but you can go in. I believe it was in the 90s. It was down in Manhattan, and they tried to, I think, subdue a robbery suspect, and they wound up getting shot and killed in the line of duty, which, back then they probably weren't wearing vests.
Right.
The cops weren't wearing vests back then early. And, so a lot of these guys really gravitated to the auxiliary. And, some go on to be police officers, as we've seen with some of the guests, and some are just, unfortunately, a good majority of them can't pass the psychological test to get on the job.
Right.
So
they're too puffy.
They just kind of, come and go, and they try to do their best with the, with helping out the police force. Now, that last thing that you looked at, that looks like it was probably a logbook in the 5-2 precinct. And it all says...
the last thing here.
Right.
Hold on.
Right. The only inaccuracy that I see is if you could see where it says precinct, you got the second one down or the third one down says 6-6.
Yeah.
Right?
A 6-6.
Right.
Add another 6 there, and it's the Satanists.
I'm just thinking this was a 5-2 log. I don't know how it got into it or it was something from the auxiliary police section. But depending on it, you can see like you have dates where people joined the auxiliary and left the auxiliary. Now,
okay.
Right. You see that? So that one guy, it's blank, but there's a good chance that they might still be carrying him on the logbook, but he could have transferred to the 6-6 precinct, which is in Brooklyn.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I that's just speculation on my part. And I see Unique Mastiff said many cadets in the 90s went on to be policemen. Yes, cadets is totally different than the auxiliary officers. Cadets are guys that give, they work for the NYPD. They do administrative duties. And then after that, they wind up, the NYPD actually pays for schooling for them. And then they're, I think they're obligated to give the NYPD 2 years of service.
Mm-hmm.
And so cadets are definitely different. They're in a different category than auxiliaries. Just want to go on to say that, I can't speak 100% for these documents because I never was an auxiliary police officer. Okay. I've come into
hold on one second, book club. Let's just get John in on the conversation too. Finish what you're saying, but John, mute yourself so we don't hear that echo. Wait, you know what? Let's get it. Sorry, John. Sorry. Whoops.
Let's just get John in on the conversation.
John, sorry, book club. Finish what you were saying. I apologize profusely.
What I want to say is I can't go on the record. I was never auxiliary again. What I do know of the auxiliaries is more present time. You know what I mean? So we have to, I can just go from speculation. And I will tell people out there that I'm really not speaking out of turn because as of just recently, I was a New York City police officer for 25 years. 22 of those years, I was assigned to the 52nd precinct. So I actually kind of laugh when I hear all of this stuff. And I do know people who were in that emergency services unit, again, but they came after Berkowitz and all those guys.
Right. And book club, we never wanted to out you while I knew this for the last 2 years. We never wanted to out you out of respect for you and your privacy. But since you just, outed yourself, I just want to say congratulations. And also you've been a great, congratulations on your retirement.
Yeah, and I'm not coming out of retirement, man.
Listen, but because of your experience, you've been a great resource for us in the video series. And
I just want to say, I'm sure this is going to echo John's point because John, you, myself, a few others, Paul Hart to be one, we're total Maury heads. But after, getting this information and being able to look at this information and break it apart piece by piece and analyze it, you then can make a more educated decision. So I also didn't want to come on because I thought it was an NYPD cover-up, and, I had told you that. But after looking at everything, I believe that, they did their job. They had to hunt down all these different tips and everything of that nature. So I think they got it right.
I think they got it right too. I think at worst, what you can say about NYPD is that certain incidents, like say the fact that Berkowitz was riding with a suspended license for 2 months, right? And the fact that on the night of the Suriani murder, they actually stopped him, and he didn't have his insurance, right? Those are the kind of things I can see not wanting to get out into the public sphere.
Well, Manny, just to go on the record, driving with a suspended license at that time was a summons, and as far as no insurance, if you couldn't prove it, then. It's that summons is in lieu of arrest.
Right.
So back in my time, which is the late 90s, what we call a 511, which is a suspended license, that was a big arrest for young cops like myself. That's part of the whole broken windows policing and all that stuff. But as far as back then, even one of my first arrests was a 511, and my father, who's also retired, he told me, "Oh, that's a summons, kid." He started breaking my chops as a rookie. He was already retired.
Right.
But, so different things of that nature as far as, and I know far as insurance, for us, that was a big summons to write because they used to look at summonses, but you didn't hurt the person. So if they had proof of their insurance, they could mail that card in at a later date and not get a fine, and you still got credit for your number.
Now, book club before, because I want to get to John, but book club, real quick. Eric had a question for you. So he said, "What about the sheets not with an authorized signature, like we see here now? Is there
Right.
any significance there?"
I don't know if really that significance. I really can't speak too much of that. It just could be that the sergeant didn't write it out. And then from what I'm looking at too, this is the one that it looks like the carbon paper moved. You know, when you had carbon paper back then, everything was in triplicate.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance that that was written just as sort of a scratch copy for the sergeant, and the sergeant might have went back and rewrote that really neat. But they
to your
just had
point-
the information.
But to your point, it looks like whoever wrote Painter, Comparetto, Berkowitz, and Snedeker were the same person. And I
Right,
think it,
and that could have been Dave coming in and signing, 4 people in who were standing in front of him. And you can see that the, and especially back then, and auxiliaries are kind of buffy. So, when it might have just got screwed up with the carbon papers because everything shifted up a line. So I'm pretty much, I'm speculating, of course, but the sergeant probably rewrote that on a new paper and then signed it.
oh, right, I get that. All right, well, book club, you want to stick around for John?
Yeah, I'll stick around.
Hey,
Johnny.
hey, Manny, what's happening? What a nice surprise this morning.
I had to do this one, believe me. Book club knows I've been sitting on this for about a month and, about 3 weeks. And we've been going back and forth whether we should do it or not. And I just decided this morning, F it, I'm doing it.
You know what? You know how I feel. I beg you to at least try and do one little pop up a month, because we cannot leave this case in the hands of the QAnon people.
No, we can't. You're right. As long and that's kind of how I feel. As long as people are shitting on this case, I'm gonna stick around.
And you want to know what the sad part is? Because I was talking to a famous detective we all know recently, and at this point, even if there's the slightest possibility that on some of these attacks there was assistance, maybe another person, nobody's going to believe it unless we have absolute video of this happening because of what's been done to this case, because of the lies and the manipulation. And you know what? That's pretty damaging. It's really sad, actually.
Yeah, I mean, Maury did extreme damage to himself, and I don't know. We could go on forever about whether he knew it at the time or whether he didn't. The fact is, we'll probably never know. I have my suspicions, but yeah, I mean, the guy destroyed this case, and we've been having to rebuild it ever since.
I just want to say one other thing, really not related to this episode. I was speaking to somebody who was involved in one of the television shows about Billy the Artist. And not only was he not vetted, they didn't even record his name.
I'm not surprised.
So if anybody out there is still looking for Billy the Artist, I don't know how many people have his real name, but good luck, because I can't tell you who told me, but it's
that's fine.
Personality. And basically they took Maury's word that this guy was the artist that was hanging out at Untermeyer with the Carr brothers, which is completely ridiculous.
And remember, it was Billy the Artist that's a second story if you think about it. Remember, it was Billy the Artist who supposedly gave the Carr brothers the alphabet to use for the this block letter stuff that we were talking about today.
Yes.
So, whatever Maury needed to do, he threw shit at walls and saw what would stick. And unfortunately for all of us, a lot of it did stick until we came along. But anyway, guys, I want to kind of take off. I think we said what we needed to say today. Any last words, John, and Book Club?
Nice to see you back. I hope we can do this once in a while.
Yeah, let's talk for sure, because now that I did this, I'm getting the fire in the belly again. So we'll be talking soon, all right?
Have a great weekend, guys.
You too. Thanks. Book Club, any final words?
No, just, thanks for giving me the opportunity to, put my 2 cents in.
Listen, Book Club, we want you to give your 2 cents, your 5 cents, your 10 cents, your $100 anytime, my man. We really appreciate it. And of course, you were speaking from a place of authority. and someone who knows what they're talking about. So that's what we kind of like to do over here. So once again, thanks a lot, Book Club, for joining us today and filling in a little bit of these blanks for us. Okay.
All right. Thanks, man.
All right. We'll talk soon, my friend.
Later.
Later. All right, guys. Well, I think we set out what we needed to do today. I want to say thanks to everybody out there in the audience. This was a super fun episode. Always great to see the gang old back together. And like I said, we're gonna do some limited shows. I kind of had to do this show as a psychological barrier in a sense. I needed to do a show where I knew it wasn't as super high impact as Brooklyn, but F it, who gives a crap? I think today's episode actually was kind of intriguing and interesting, and raises some questions. But what I think it definitely does is establish that Berkowitz was definitely writing and experiencing, at the very least, was definitely writing and experiencing this block letter style of writing that was then became so perfected in the Breslin Letter as early as 1970, when he was a 17-year-old trainee in the New York Police Department auxiliary units. And I think that is basically all we need to say. All right, guys. Well, listen, I want to say thank you so much. We really appreciate every one of you here. Stay on the lookout. I think I'm going to be having some conversations with some old school heads, and we're going to come up with some new material for you guys. All right. So we'll see you soon. Take care. Thanks.